I'm excited about having my president, president of Chapman University, Daniele Struppa, as a guest on Chapman Connects today. Daniele has been with Chapman now 14 years. 10 years as my provost when I served as president, and for the last years as our president. And those 4 years, Daniele, have been a whirlwind of activity, a lot of progress being made. Not the least of which is that we became a national university during that time. All of our schools and colleges have moved up the rankings, and we created the Fowler School of Engineering, which is something I'm particularly excited about. I first met Daniele when he was a candidate for provost 14 years ago, and I interviewed all of our provost candidates given the importance of that position, and I'll never forget when Daniele walked into my office, the first thing he did was point to photographs I had of the various mountains I had climbed with usually my son Adam and me on the peak of the mountain. And he said, "Oh, that's Aconcagua, that's this mountain, that's Elbrus." He knew all the mountains. How do you know that? He said, I'm also a climber. When I realized that he was a fellow mountain climber, I knew that this was the beginning of a beautiful comradeship,
Absolutely.
A colleagueship, and friendship that we've had over the years.
And that's when I knew I was going to get the job, when I saw those mountain pictures.
Well, speaking of mountain climbing and the challenge of climbing mountains, over the last almost 6 months or so, you've had to climb the COVID
mountain.
And we're going to get into that and focus on that today because that's probably one of the more formidable challenges that you faced as president. And just to bring us back to, I guess it would have been April, when in a relatively short period of time, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, the university with the shutdown orders and stay-at-home orders, we had to go online with a faculty that's not online oriented.
Right.
And it happened. And could you bring us back to that period and what you and the administrative team, Daniele, had to face?
Sure. Well, it was actually, in a way, an exciting time. You know, the challenges are also, I always claim the challenges will show the character of a person, but also of an institution. And it was actually in February that we started figuring out that this was not just going to be a passing flu. You may remember some people say, it's going to blow away, it's not going to be a big deal. And I was getting suspicious that this might not be the case. So I got together with Harold Hewitt, our CEO, and with Glenn Pfeiffer, our provost, and we started making plans. Most of the plans were really how we're going to handle it if we have to close down. And so we're thinking about the online, the remote, we like to call it remote teaching, but also the financial aspects, because we realized the financial impact was going to be gigantic. And then in March, within 24 hours, we closed. I sent out, I think it was March 12 or 13, I sent out an email on Thursday, and as of Friday, we were remote. And what the thing that struck me is that in my email to the faculty, I said, we're going to go remote as of tomorrow, but you have permission to close for a week. You can stop classes for a week if you need to kind of reassemble your thoughts and figure out what to do. Within 24 hours, our use of Canvas, which is our online platform, doubled, and virtually nobody took advantage of this extra week that I gave faculty. People just kind of on a switch, they clicked and they went into remote modality. Now, that's not to say that it was all perfect. Obviously, there were challenges. We did it strategically a week before spring break, so that they would give faculty the extra spring break to work on it, but we had a relatively uneventful transformation. And so all of a sudden, the entire university was remote. We had already in place a very good fiscal plan to address the shortcoming. We knew that we were going to lose, and we knew this already as of March, we were going to lose something like $14 million, because we immediately made a commitment to our students that we were going to pay them back prorated room and board. We were going to keep paying all of our work study students. so that to avoid any additional hardship. So when you add them up, it was about $13.5 million. And so that's one of the great things about Chapman. We were able to close the faucet of spending appropriately, and we ended up doing very well despite all of this.
Well, on that point, Chapman was one of the first institutions, I believe, to announce that we would be having classes again.
That's right.
Some of which would be normal classes again,
Right.
come late August. In fact, the Wall Street Journal recently had a feature story on what schools are doing, and Chapman was, as I observed it, as a leader. Chapman was a featured university in terms of what Chapman is doing to prepare for a reopening. So in many ways, Chapman is a paragon, is an example at the frontier of what's going on as we go back to the traditional mode of
That's right.
education. Can you tell us why has Chapman become this paragon?
Well,
What have you and the team done to set the model?
I think that's a very good question, and I think one of, Chapman has a lot of reasons why it's kind of an exceptional institution. But one is that I think our administrative structure is very thoughtful and very responsive to change. And that's something that I've been in other institutions before I haven't seen. And you and I talked about this when I joined the team 14 years ago. So it's really a thoughtful group. So when in February I thought we had to probably go remote at some point, we start planning. So when it happened a month later, we were ready. And we didn't stop the planning. At that point, we started two new planning. One is what happens if the governor in August tells us, you know what, university have to be closed. Well, we are ready for that. We have a plan for that. And what happens if instead we can open, and we have a plan for that. I think that that's what distinguishes Chapman. One of the things that captured me when I joined the team was this idea of these 5-year plans. Every institution, every university, every company, everybody does strategic plans. And most of the time they're useless and they're just a collection of beautiful words about what people want to do. I like our plans because there are more numbers than words, and they're really very specific plans for what's going to happen, and we keep to that. And you know that because that's how you build this magnificent institution. That's how I'm continuing that path. And I think that our abilities lies in the ability of sitting down and really making a thoughtful plan. So we said, okay, first of all, we are going to prepare for the reopening because we know that our students and our parents want it. And we're going to assume that there is going to be social distancing. Just like in a restaurant, you can't have the entire, all the tables taken. So how many students will be able to be allocated to our dorms? How many students will be in the classroom? And we are assuming that we're going to have health measures. And so we made a plan that contains two fundamental financial blocks. One is the revenue loss, less students in the dorms, and probably enrollment slowing down. And the second part of the financial plan is what are the additional expenses that are necessary to ensure a healthy presence on campus. Testing, masks, gloves, disinfectants, thermometers, tracers. So we put in all of this. What should a class look like? Well, we said, assume that you can't have classes bigger than 20. Well, most of our classes are about 19, 18, 19. How do we handle that with the social distancing issues? And so we realized that every class needed to be retrofitted so that only half of the students will be in class every time. So my math class this semester is going to have 18 students. 9 will come on Monday, 9 will come on Wednesday. And so we retrofitted the class so that the 9 that come on Wednesday can still follow my class on Monday from their dorm or from their home. This has cost us more than $2 million, just this little piece, just putting the cameras in everything. And so I think that when you ask what has made us distinguished is the fact that we are really able and willing and interested in planning ahead. And I have to say that I spoke with some other presidents, friends that I have, and I was stunned by the lack of preparedness that I hear. One of the sentences I heard, I was talking with a friend, and I said, it's quite possible that the governor may decide to close, because, And the response, and so I said, and so we are preparing for that possibility. There would be probably $110 million loss for the institution, which is a huge amount of money. And the response is, wow, we are not even contemplating that. That would be a disaster. That response...
They'd rather not think about
exactly.
it. Or do anything about it.
And you can't do that. You have to have the plans.
Yeah.
And the plan it would not be pretty,
Yeah.
obviously. But the institution is strong, and the idea of every one of the contingency plans we are making is how do we not only manage the crisis, but come out of the crisis even stronger. Come out of the crisis without having weakened our fundamental strength. That's what you need to do. It's like when you climb. When you climb, it's the same thing. You go through a protracted crisis, right? You lose weight, you lose energy because you can't metabolize when you're above 20,000 feet. And so you need to have a plan that allows you to get to the summit and come back in one piece. It's really not so different.
And you have to be ready to make changes on a moment's notice. If you realize that that next climb you find that there are possible pitfalls in the snow, and that you have to deal with possible crevasses, you have to sidetrack.
That's
it
right.
Might take more time, but that's what you have to do.
Flexibility.
So climbing is a pretty good
I think it's a great
Aberdeen proving ground for becoming president.
I think so. Well, you and I talked about this almost 15 years ago because you interviewed me in November of 5. And I remember we talked about that, and it remains true to me.
Yeah.
Climbing has a lot of affinities with what we need to do to be successful. Teamwork. When you're on a rope team, your survival depends on everybody else, and their survival depends on you.
Yeah.
So it creates an idea of team that you don't see normally. There is no more selfishness there.
Yeah.
Everybody's together.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Advanced planning. Yeah, if you are maybe a super strong climber, you don't care, but people like us, you need to plan carefully. You need to plan how much food you can bring, how much water you need, what kind of clothes. You can bring too much stuff because it bogs you down. You can bring too little stuff. So the planning. And then the flexibility and the ability to stick it out when things get rough. And to be honest, I mean, this has been a difficult 3 or 4 months, but to me they've been very energizing. Sometimes in our job you feel like, what impact am I actually making? The university works so well.
Or same old, same
Right. Sometimes I feel like if I were to disappear tomorrow morning, nobody would even notice. Maybe my secretary would, but the university is still doing very well. But in this crisis, no. In this crisis, it becomes important.
That's when leadership really
That's right.
really comes to the fore. I understand that, in terms of students entering the library, so many enter the library at any one time, that the traditional mode is that you zap them to find out if they have the fever. But don't we have a more innovative way that we're going to do it?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know much about this. No.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think I thought we were having infrared monitoring.
Yeah, but as I recall, it was more frontier kind of. You don't need one person; it'll be done.
No. It's going to be kind of almost like what you have when you go through those metal barriers that identify whether you have metal with you.
Yeah.
So
it seems like companies that are wondering what to do, they may want to look at Chapman.
Exactly.
Maybe you'll become an advisor to all companies as to how to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's go out in a more optimistic vein, and I'm fairly sure that there will be a vaccine. It's a matter of time rather than when it's going to happen. But when we reach that point, there's a vaccine, COVID goes away, and we're back to normal. Do you think the pandemic will have permanently changed the landscape of higher education?
I hope so in some way. I think that we've learned lessons that are very helpful. For one thing, I've already asked our Chief Human Resource Officer, Vice President for Human Resources, to plan a much more aggressive telecommuting solution for the university. I found out that we work very well in a remote setting. We are actually much more productive. I certainly have been incredibly more productive over the last 3 months because there are no wastes of time. You get up in the morning.
No pop-ins.
No pop-ins, that's right. The curse of the president, the pop-in. So you finish a meeting at 10:50, the next meeting is at 11, you have 10 minutes to check out your email, and somebody pops in. That's like
the bane of the president.
The bane of the president, so that's gone. So
and we're an open institution, and
Right.
we believe in that interaction
Absolutely.
and personalized approach. So,
And we get punished
unlike
for
maybe
that.
other presidents, we accept that pop-in.
Well, I remember when I used to be friend with the provost at UCI, who is now the chancellor, wonderful man, Howard Gilman, and I was going to meet him every once in a while in his office. You know, I was the provost here, he was the provost there, and there is like an army of people that you have to go through before you can see the provost, even though he was expecting me.
Yeah.
So we don't have that at Chapman everything. But so one of the things I want to do is to have much more telecommuting. For example, even in my office, I have 2 assistants and 4 students that work there. And the assistant probably they will only come to work 3 times a week. One will do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the other will do Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So they have one day in common where they can maintain the team connection between them. And then the other 2 days, one is going to be there to guarantee presence, the other will work from home. It's more effective. I think is for workers who want to do it, for employees who want to do it, that I think is going to be a really positive thing. So that's one change that I want to implement. It's going to have a lot of positive repercussion, less traffic. If every university were to do this, the traffic, the pollution, I think the worker satisfaction, because I think they want to be in the office because they like their friends, so they don't want to be completely remote. But having those couple of days that you don't have to walk in, it's helpful to them in a variety of ways. The second thing is that I think some of the stuff we learned about teaching will continue to be there.
Yeah.
For example, I teach a class and the kid is sick. Normally the kid would be in his dorm and then he needs to get the notes from somebody. But now that we have this machinery, the kid is sick, and even if he has a little fever, he can still listen to me talking about differential equation. He's going to be in his dorm or in his residence hall or his home. So we will avoid all this issue of people saying, well, you know, I missed a class. You don't miss a class. When I get into class, I click a button and I see him. Joe, how are you doing? Well, I'm not doing too well, professor. I'm going to do it from home today. That's fine. Let me know if we can help. And then you go on. So that is going to be a change that will remain. There is no reason for that. The taping the classes. I did it a few years ago, actually, in this studio as an experiment. I tape a certain number of things and I gave it to my student in advance. But
Which
now,
is particularly helpful in math, where
Exactly.
I know in econometrics, where some students have math difficulty more
That's
than
right.
others, haven't had the background.
Absolutely.
And now they can watch these videos over and over.
over and over, and they can stop you, because what students make fun of math professors is that we write an entire whiteboard and then we erase and we went to the next, and the student said, no, stop, and it's too late. You're already. This is completely resolved now, because the student, you know, when I do my videos, I do in 20 minutes, what in class would take me an hour, but the student can stop whenever he wants. So when I finish I say, now we just do a change of variables, t equal square root of x, and the guy stop. What is he talking about? And he can check it. So I'm going to do, next week I'm coming here, one of those classes for an entire day. I'm going to spend 10 hours, and I'm going to tape my entire fall class. So I'm going to have tapes for every single topic of my class. If it's open, I'm going to send them to my student in advance, so then during the class I don't have to explain it. We can just look at problems, ask questions that are a little more sophisticated, do something a little difficult. So I think that those things will remain as a great advance that we have. I mean, now we have learned a new way that is more effective.
Now, Chapman seems like we're, you know, as that Wall Street Journal article seemed to indicate, we're at the frontier. We'll be able to deal with it. Do you see that some institutions in higher education won't make it?
I think so. I think, I mean, there are predictions from experts, and well, you and I are kind of experts too in this area, and I think there are going to be lots of institutions.
What kind of institutions won't make it?
I think private, small institutions maybe
Underendowed?
maybe 1,000, 1,500 students.
Yeah.
I don't see how they can have, unless they have gigantic endowments, which most of them don't have, I don't see how they can survive.
Yeah.
Just as an example, I mean, if we are closed in the fall, if we are remote, we are estimating a loss of about 110 millions. Chapman is strong, so we have plans that will allow us to overcome that. Now, what institution can do that for maybe 2, 3, 4 semesters? So I think that unless there is a quick solution, many institutions will go under. Those institutions will tell me, oh, we can't even think about that. Those institutions are likely to go under. I received already 2 requests from other friend institutions to consider a merger. And that's an indication that people are under stress. And we know it because you've done a lot of studies on this, so you know better than anybody, but how the discount rate has been creeping up, and that's kind of a death spiral, right? So you
Discount
can't...
rate to our viewers is
Oh,
the,
yeah.
is the proportion of financial aid that's given
That's
to
right.
students, and schools are giving more and more financial aid away. Yeah.
University have a sticker price,
Yeah.
say $50,000.
Yeah.
That's what appears in the books, but then the financial aid is maybe 60%, and so the student is only paying 20. Well, many institutions we know in recent years that this discount rate, so this amount of scholarship, is increasing because the institutions are unable to attract the students. And so in order to fill the class, they give more and more discount, but it comes a point that you're losing money on every student you bring in.
Yeah.
And so I think those institutions are going to be in trouble. Institutions that have not been managing their endowment well. You have always been very proud, and we continue to be proud under my terms, that our endowment grows much faster than any other institution we can compare ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be...
But even if there's not a stay-at-home order nationally, even what we have to do at Chapman in terms of not having as many students in residence halls, fewer students in class, I think that's going to be very difficult for other institutions to deal with. And we have another benefit, of course, we have a community that's very supportive. We have a donor, as I understand, that gave a gift to a worthy part of Chapman, but then gave you the opportunity to use that gift in place to fund all of these things we have to do to deal with COVID.
Right. Well, this is a great example of why we are a special institution. So we have the Brain Institute, which is one of our jewels, and we have a donor that is very committed to the Brain Institute. It's a wonderful couple of parents, and they believe in the importance of what the Brain Institute does. So they donated $1 million for the Brain Institute, and this is not their first donation. They've been very generous and long-term friends. And when the Corona thing exploded, they called us and they said, you do whatever you want, but maybe it could be a good idea to see if this could be used to help with this crisis.
And that's incredible.
And we talked to the director of the institute. That's another situation in which everything can break down, because the director could have said, no, come on, this money was destined to the institute. I already planned for using it. Or he could have done it because we imposed him and created negative feedback. Instead, the director, who is a significant university citizen, obviously, said, absolutely, we are happy to do that. That's our service to the institution.
It's that can-do spirit.
And our Dean of Engineering did something similar. When we were coming up with the plan to save these $57 million that we think are going to be the shortfall in the fall, he gave up $1 million of construction funds that he had. He was able to find them in different ways through donors. So one of the things that is very special about Chapman is how almost everybody really wants the best for the institution. It's not just a me attitude.
I have one last question. We're nearing the end of the show, but I don't want the show to end without discussing Chapman and its connection to the community. I had as a guest on Chapman Connects, Mark Percy, who's the president of the CEO Leadership Alliance. He talked about how he's bringing different institutions together, educational, corporation, K through 12, come together to make for a stronger county and economic region in Southern California. How are you using your executive leadership to better connect Chapman University with our larger community?
Well, I think that's a very important part. I give a lot of speeches, but one that I gave in July '06 that my faculty always remember is when I said the question we ought to ask ourselves is, would the community care if Chapman were to move out? If tomorrow the Board of Trustees says, okay, we are leaving Orange and we found this great opportunity in Reno,
We're
Nevada.
merging with Harvard.
Would anybody care? And that's a question that is driving, I know has been driving your thinking and drives my thinking. It's a very important one. And we are lucky because we have what I think the community needs, which is the ability to create the right workforce and to influence some of the most important aspects, which are the school systems. So you talk to Mark, and obviously Mark with the CLA, the CEO Leadership Alliance, is working very hard to change the ecosystem. one of the things that we want is an Orange County that is able to attract the very best talent from all around the country. And this is good for everybody. It's good for businesses because they need to hire the talent to be ahead of everybody else. But it's good for the universities as well because people will want to go where there is a impactful activity. And before the show, you and I were talking about Mike Musalem, the CEO of Edward Life Sciences. He's not only a friend, a personal friend of us, but he's a tremendous leader in the community. When the corona came up, he helped Chapman. So there is an understanding here that all of our institutions are connected in a net. There is no Chapman University and Edward Life Science here and Massimo here, and you know, it's really a system in which our success
Interconnected system.
Interconnected system. And what we do is, well, we provide talent. You know, many of our faculty consult or work or offer advice or train people in the companies nearby. We have a very vibrant program, for example, with Massimo on patient safety through our School of Pharmacy. We train the workforce, and so part of our job is to have programs which are responsive. You and I spoke about building an engineering school, I think in 2007. It took us a while, but we now have an engineering school. But why an engineering school? It's not because it looks good to have an engineering school. It's because that's what the region needs. That's what places like Edward Life Science and Beckman Coulter and so on and so forth necessitate. So the creation of programs that are relevant, the training, the creation, and frankly, one of the great challenges we have is the K-12 school system. And so what can we do through our Atala College of Educational Studies and the rest of the institution to improve on that? We have people in the Hogue Center, people like Joel Kotkin, who have been doing incredibly important work on the future of Orange County, giving our policymakers ideas and instruments to make decisions that are not based on emotions or on partisan viewpoints, but are actually based on data. We are not interested in this partisan divide. Our desire is to provide whoever is in charge the instruments, the data, the tools to make the best decisions. And I think that's a huge role for a university.
Yeah. We're out of time. I wish we had more time to talk about Black Lives Matter, that movement, what happened post George Floyd, and what Chapman is doing to respond to create a more diverse environment. But maybe next time.
At the next time.
In the meantime, thank you for being our president and allowing me the opportunity to teach, do this, and feel confident that we're in great hands.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you,
Pleasure
Daniele.
talking with you. Thank you.